Hello everyone and welcome to yet another Jujutsu Kaisen character discussion. Today I'm going to be talking about second year student and special grade sorcerer Yuta Okkotsu, so I hope you're looking forward to that. Before I get into this discussion, I of course have to mention my subscriber goal for 2021, hitting 5,000 by the end of the year. So if you're already a fan of my videos and you're not subscribed, you might as well to help me reach that goal. The other thing is my Patreon, if you want to help support me and the channel directly. Get access to some solo leveling and omniscient reader content, or just get a shout out at the end of videos. You can always become a patron. There's a link to my Patreon down in the description. With that out of the way, let's get on with this discussion. So, Yuta is fairly unique among most of the Jujutsu Kaisen cast for a number of reasons. The first of which is that he existed before most of the main cast, being part of Volume 0, which was originally called something like Tokyo Metropolitan Magic Technical School. I think that was the full name for the one-shot before it became Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 0. And another thing was that he was the main character of that one-shot. So he is the, I guess the proto-Yuji, because he and Yuji actually share a lot of similarities. Mostly the, personal demon thing. Except instead of Sukuna, which is something that Yuji intentionally took into himself, Rika is something that Yuta accidentally attached to himself, accidentally turned Rika into a cursed, or created a curse version of Rika, depending on your interpretation of that. Depending on whatever sort of future explanation we get for Rika's existence, because, the fact that she's back is a little bizarre. There's a lot more we need to know about what the deal with her is, but I'll talk more about that towards the end of the video. And another thing is that Yuta's character arc was completed in Volume 0. He had a whole, arc for developing his character over the course of those 4 chapters, and it was completed by the end of Volume 0. So he doesn't really have much, motivation, much of a goal that he's striving for like some of the other characters are, or really room for development, I think. Which is not to say that there's nothing to do with Yuta's character. There is. There will be a few things that I mentioned in this video. But for the most part, I feel like by the time we get to the main series of Jujutsu Kaisen, Yuta is just kind of there, like Gojo is just there, which is interesting because Yuta is a fellow student. All the other most of the other students have like goals. They're trying to train and get stronger, which Yuta is still trying to do to some extent, but he's so powerful already that for him it's not really like as big of an issue for him. Yuta has other concerns, such as his friends. As we found out in the fan book, his greatest cause of stress is his friends and not being able to see them, because after the events of Volume 0, Yuta got sent off to Africa with Miguel to find more of the Black Rope, and with his friends being as important to his character as they are, you can imagine that was, like, not a super enjoyable experience for Yuta. You can tell when he gets back. The kid looks like he hasn't slept in a month. Good lord, does Yuta need to get some sleep. But I would say one of the major parts of Yuta's character is the importance of his friends and what he looks up to and emulates them, because during Volume 0, Yuta viewed himself as a very weak and helpless person, and when he met the other students at Jujutsu Tech, he thought they were amazing, and he wanted to, live up to be like them. He looked up to them as role models. Which was very important for Maki, for example, because Maki had always been looked down on as a disgrace and a failure. Don't be like Maki. So when Yuta says that he wants to be like her, that's like it's a really awesome character moment. I imagine it was pretty great for her. And Yuta's admiration for his friends is sort of translated into his curse technique, or our understanding of his curse technique, which is curse technique copying, which means that he's able to copy the abilities of the people that he finds so amazing, such as Inumaki's curse speech, and sort of indirectly he's able to mimic Maki's immense physical strength through, cursed energy manipulation, which is of course something Maki can't do, but she's really strong already. So that's like the next best thing. Now, I feel like, for the most part, Yuta's character arc in Volume 0 is sort of about overcoming trauma. You could say that Yuta's whole character arc is sort of an allegory about getting over trauma and traumatic events, which is all sparked by the death of Rika, who you could call his childhood friend, his childhood sweetheart. I'm not sure what exactly I want to call that, because they were like little kids when Rika was like, oh yeah, we'll get married, because little kids say stuff like that all the time. But then, she died. So, Yuta did definitely care a lot about Rika, and didn't want her to die, and not knowing about his own curse technique, his cursed energy, he accidentally cursed her and turned her into the Queen of Curses, Rika, that we all know, and love, I guess? I mean, Rika's pretty fun. So I think we all love Rika. And because of her, well, because of himself, really, but because of the curse Rika that's attached to him, it pretty much becomes impossible for Yuta to live a normal life, because she is extremely protective and extremely violent. So a lot of the times people would get seriously injured or killed because Yuta was around them, and they did something that set Rika off without knowing it. I think in the fanbook it stated that several sorcerers had actually been killed before they had sent Gojo in to, secure Yuta. So that just goes to show, like, it was an even bigger problem than we thought it was, just from seeing the beginning of Volume 0. But as Yuta trains and develops throughout the events of Volume 0, he learns to fight without Rika, learns to manipulate his cursed energy, and eventually, towards the end, he actually learns how to control Rika. And by the end of it, when he, tells Rika that he loves her, and, accepts Rika, you can sort of see that as when you really accept what happened, and you try moving on from it. You start to move on from it, which was something that Yuta hadn't been able to do before. And at the end, when Rika is seemingly dispelled, you could see that as like him finally letting go and moving on from his trauma. It certainly seems like that at the end, when now he's happy and he's with the other students at Jujutsu Tech, and he's like doing his own thing now. So you could say that pretty much all of Volume 0 is about moving on from trauma. And that Yuta's character is pretty much the main focus for that. Now, as I mentioned, Yuta's character arc is pretty much over. So, what are we going to do with Yuta? Great question. There are a couple things. I think the biggest one at the forefront would be Rika. What is the deal with Rika? We found out pretty much in the same chapter that Yuta returned that Rika is back, still around. We really have no idea what the deal is with Rika now. Her appearance is different, so this does suggest some kind of change from the way that she worked before. There are a number of possibilities. Some people have theorized that Yuta just created another Rika. Depending on what your interpretation of his technique is, he could have literally just created another one. But now that he's more trained, he's able to control her. Alternatively, the other one is that Rika is free. She's no longer bound to Yuta like she was before, where she was there all the time. But now she's able to come back whenever she wants, or whenever Yuta calls her. She can come back over from the other side. Which I think kind of fits in with how she seems to come out of like this portal substance. It's almost like the substance that the curses from curse manipulation come out of. I don't remember if Rika ever did that before. I know she would come out of like walls and stuff. But that sort of like weird portal thing that she comes out of, that may have something to do with it. Probably has something to do with it. But we really don't know. So I imagine a lot of Yuta's sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? His role in the upcoming arc is going to deal a lot with how is Rika working? What is up with Rika? How is she back? What's the deal? Another thing is that, of course, Yuta is the senior to the first years. He is their... he should be a role model for them. So I imagine that we are going to get some stuff with Yuta kind of, maybe not necessarily training the first years, but certainly helping them out. I don't think we're really going to have time for a training arc during this. But Yuta definitely trying to help out Megumi and Yuji, maybe Nobara if she's not dead. Stuff like that. We do know that he's going to be playing a major role in the upcoming Culling game, so I imagine that we are going to see him do some stuff like that. The last thing is his relationship with the other second years. The only one he's met up so far with is Maki. Though Maki's probably the one that he has the most developed relationship with. We know he's friends with Inumaki, and we know he's like kind of friends with Panda. We haven't really seen much with them, so there's actually probably the most room for developing their friendship. But Yuta and Maki probably have the most substance between them for any of the second years. We got the whole first chapter of Volume 0 dedicated to Yuta and Maki going on a mission together, and you had that stuff in Chapter 3 of Volume 0 with their conversation and Yuta wanting to help Maki defeat the Zenin clan and, looking up to her and stuff like that. Hey, what can I say? There's a little bit of content there for a smidgen of shipping. Listen, if TV Trope says it's a thing, I'm not reaching. And the fan book itself has said that, Yuta will probably have romantic interests after Rika. He will love someone other than Rika. Listen, Rika is, assuming this is the same Rika is dead. So I think it'd be weird for him to still be, kind of latched onto her after she was dead and a weird ghost monster. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll see. Yuta may move on. And I'm sure Rika would be very happy for him, because Rika loves Yuta, and she would want what's best for him, and she'd want for him to be happy. So we'll see what has to happen with that. Do I think Yuta is going to die? I don't think so. I don't get that impression. So I've said that his character arc is pretty much over, but despite that, he doesn't strike me as the type of character to be killed. I don't know what it is about him, but, you wouldn't get, a super... He doesn't have a big emotional connection to the main character, or to other characters in the same way that some of the other dead ones do. Actually, no, Yuta's... Forget that. Yuta is actually more important to several characters than the likes of Junpei or Mekamaru. The Mekamaru actually had, an established relationship with Miwa, and you felt for the guy, so... I guess Yuta kinda does, but there's something about him doesn't strike me as the type of character to be killed. Now, there is this really freaky theory that I cannot seem to find anymore, but basically, almost all of the characters in Jujutsu Kaisen, their birthdays follow some kind of pattern. It's some kind of Japanese calendar thing. I don't know. I don't remember the exact details. I don't have it up right in front of me. I don't know where to find it. I haven't been able to find it again. But almost all of the characters' birthdays follow this pattern, except for 4. Those 4 characters are Junpei, Mekamaru, Nanami, and Yuta. As you can see, probably, that is not a great track record for people with those birthdays, because 3 out of 4 of them are fucking dead. And Yuta is the only one who's still alive, and he just got reintroduced into the story. So, who knows what will happen with Yuta. Hopefully nothing bad, because the dude's been through a lot, and I would like to see things go kind of well for him, as I would for most of the characters in the series, because boy, is everything been going to shit. So, let's hope Yuta does not die and gets some kind of happy ending by the end of this series. But yeah, with that, that's all I have to say for this character discussion. Yuta is a fairly interesting character, not one of my personal favorites, but I know a lot of people love the guy, and I certainly appreciate Yuta. I'm not a Yuta stan, but I'm a Yuta appreciator. So yeah. If you enjoyed this discussion, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Jujutsu Kaisen chapter reactions and reviews every week that we get a chapter, which means, that's right, we're going to be getting a reaction and review this week. So, if you're not already subscribed, you should, so you don't miss that when it comes out. If you enjoy other series such as Record of Ragnarok, Kengan Omega, Black Clover, and Kaiju number 8, I do videos on those series as well, so if you're interested in those, you should definitely check out my channel. If you enjoy discussing Jujutsu Kaisen with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce on this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have a link to that down in the description. Since it's the end of the video, it's time to give a shout out to some of my patrons. Today's shoutouts will go to K-God, Angel Does It, Chris Redfield, Brendan Lee, Scratch23, and Moonshadow935. Thank you all very much for supporting me on Patreon. I greatly appreciate it. And if you too want to get a shout out at the end of videos or access to some extra content, you can always become a patron as well. There's a link to my Patreon down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.